Come on, everybody, let's give God this worship. If you know he's awesome, come on, stand on your feet, everybody. If you know he's awesome, you're in awe of his grace, you're in awe of his goodness, you're in awe of his mercy, you're in awe of his provision. He's great and he's greatly to be praised. Hallelujah. Come on, everybody, lift your hands as we lift our voices. Come on, say, my God is awesome. My God is awesome. Come on, say, he can move mountains. He can move mountains. Keep me in the valley. Keep me in the valley. Come on, say it, hide me from the rain. Hide me from the rain. That's it. My God is awesome. My God is awesome. Come on, heals me when I'm broken. Heals me when I'm broken. Strength where I've been weakened. Where I've been weak. Forever he'll reign. Come on, you got it. My God is awesome. My God is awesome. Come on, say, he can move mountains. He can move mountains. Keep me in the valley. Keep me in the valley. Hide me from the rain. Has he ever covered you? Come on, my God is awesome. My God is awesome. Heals me when I'm broken. Heals me when I'm broken. Strength where I've been weakened. Forever he'll reign. One word, come on, everybody.
Yes, forever our God will reign. And so today, I have good news for you. This is Gloria Mitchell, and we're continuing our study of Black history today. I had the privilege of looking at a book. The book is called In Black America. I used to go around selling this book in the early 70s, feeling that I should have done something during the civil rights movement. But I was a high school student at that time. But I do know that this book made a difference in my life, and I have a guest with me today who will actually share about someone who was a very significant person who's not listed in this book, In Black America. So, before I begin our broadcast today, I want to share a clip from the 1963 March on Washington.
August 28, 1963. 250,000 Americans, black and white, young and old, descend on the nation's capital in a show of solidarity. It was called the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, but it would be remembered as a turning point in the fight for civil rights. Among the speakers, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who electrified the crowd with his stirring "I Have a Dream" speech.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
A few months earlier, racial tensions in the Deep South had erupted. News reports carried brutal images of fire hoses blasting at the backs of school children. President Kennedy had finally seen enough. In June of 1963, he presented sweeping civil rights legislation to Congress. Dr. King and others hoped a massive yet peaceful demonstration in Washington would spur passage of the bill. The city braced for violence, but their fears proved unfounded. The day of the march, more than 200,000 people gathered for a rally at the Washington Monument. It was the largest demonstration in the country's history. Arm in arm, they walked from the Washington Monument to the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. There, performers as diverse as Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, and Mahalia Jackson lent their voices to the cause. Martin Luther King Jr. was the last to take the stage. He began with a reference to Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves a century earlier.
But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free.
Partway through, King put aside his prepared text and shared with the protesters his dream of equal rights for all.
Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Well, I said there was someone who was missing from this book. So, I'd like to now introduce you to my guest, Dr. recently named Dr. Jeannie Kilgore Cockcroft. Would you please tell people who is missing from this book?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Gloria Mitchell. I'm so glad to be here on the program with you today and to share a few moments of reflection about our history as African Americans here in the United States of America. And I know that I often have an opportunity to represent my father, who was very active in the civil rights movement. Here in Los Angeles, he was the pastor of Second Baptist Church of Los Angeles. I have a photo here of Second Baptist Church, which itself is now a historical monument both in Los Angeles and nationwide, celebrating this year 130 years of continuous service and being the first Black Baptist church in Los Angeles.
Even though it's called Second Baptist, it was the first Black Baptist?
Yes, and there's a very, you bring up a very good point of history there, because actually what happened was that Black Baptists were worshiping at First Baptist Church, where they were treated as second-class citizens. And so in 1885, they broke away and formed their own church, and it originally started on Maple Street in Los Angeles and later moved in 1924. This building was erected by the well-known architect Paul Williams, who designed so many buildings in Los Angeles for the Stars and others. And he built, along with black laborers, this awesome structure on 24th and Griffith, under the leadership then of Dr. Griffith, who was the pastor. And my father pastored from 1963 until 1985.
Now, something is very important that you haven't told us. What is your father's name?
Well,
and do you have a picture of him?
I do. His name was Thomas Kilgore, Jr. And I have here a picture of him standing in the middle of this crowd, surrounded by my mother right here, Coretta Scott King, Dr. King's widow here, Mayor Tom Bradley, and the president, the former president of Morehouse College, Dr. Benjamin Mays.
Oh, I remember all of those names.
Yeah, so his name was Thomas Kilgore, Jr., and he served as one of the first board members of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which is the group founded by Dr. King. And my father's chief responsibility in the early days was to raise money, beginning with the Montgomery bus boycott. And at that time, we were living in New York City, where my father was pastoring the Friendship Baptist Church in Harlem. And he and some other ministers in Harlem raised money to support the boycotters in Montgomery. Fast forward to 1963, the clip that you showed of the Civil Rights March in Washington, for the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom that day. And you find my father and our church very involved in that preparation. We had a community center around the corner from our church that was owned by our church in New York, and it was there in that community center, we called it the House of Friendship, that the March on Washington coordinating office was located. And so that was an exciting summer, 1963. I was a teenager,
Yes.
and that was my very first job, working for the coordinating office and operation of the March on Washington.
Oh, well, tell us about that. What did you do?
I typed envelopes for thousands and thousands of mailers, and I leafleted all over Harlem. I put leaflets everywhere trying to generate attendance and support at the March on Washington. I was 15 years old. It was my first job, and I was super excited that summer to do that. Yeah.
Wow, did you attend the March on Washington yourself?
I did with my church. Our church took 2 busloads to Washington, D.C. that day, and most of the youth in our church went, and quite a few of the adults as well, 2 full busloads of about 80 people, and my mother, my sister, and I, and my father were all there.
Tell us about that experience. How did you feel seeing 250,000 people standing all around the Washington Monument?
It was amazing. It was exciting, especially for a teenager, and it was peaceful. And here you saw a good cross-section of the United States, people of all colors and creeds, and people of goodwill who wanted to see justice prevail in our society. And there were no altercations. There was just harmony and a feeling of brotherhood, sisterhood. It was a very, very happy and exciting day.
Well, how did you feel seeing your father on the podium with Dr. King? I understand that your father was called a lieutenant for Dr. King.
Yes, he was one of one of the brothers who was very much in support of the movement, and I was accustomed to seeing my father with Dr. King because Dr. King was a frequent visitor in our home. There was a small group of African American ministers who believed in nonviolent social protest, and they had pretty much been ousted, the Baptist ministers, from the National Baptist Convention, because the leader of the National Baptist Convention, J.H. Jackson, believed in the court method. He was very much an NAACP man, and so was my father, but he believed that civil rights should be fought in the courts alone and that we should not demonstrate.
Okay.
And so he had asked Dr. King to leave the National Baptist Convention. And for that reason, my father and others formed the Progressive National Baptist Convention because they considered themselves to be progressives. So in 1962, they formed the Progressive National Baptist Convention to give Dr. King a convention home, because he had been put out of the National Baptist Convention. So the first time I met him, that I remember meeting him, was when I was 6 years old. It was during the Montgomery bus boycott, and he came to New York, preached at our church, and as was the custom then, the visiting preacher would always be invited to the home for dinner. And so he came to our house for dinner. And I was 6, and I felt a strange aura about him. I sensed that there was something with him, and as a little girl, I scooted up under the dining room table and hid from him because there was just something very aura. You know, he was a nice, down-to-earth guy, but there was something about him. But he reached up under there and pulled me out and played with me and my sister, and He was very talented. Sat down we had a little baby grand piano in the living room. He sat down at the piano and played classical music.
Dr. King did that?
Yes, he played Beethoven's
I
Moonlight
never heard
Sonata.
that part.
Oh, he was very talented.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was just very likable, and he liked children, and we had a good time. During the March on Washington summer, I had the assignment of taking him and his 12-year-old daughter to our local amusement park, Coney Island.
Okay.
And you may have heard him speak many times in some of his speeches about how his daughter was hurt that she could not attend the segregated amusement parks there in Georgia where they lived.
Now, was this Yolanda?
This was Yolanda.
Okay.
She was the elder daughter of the two King daughters, and so that was one of my assignments that summer, to take them to Coney Island, to the amusement park. So that was fun, almost fun. He and Dr. Abernathy, as far as I, a teenager, was concerned, did not dress appropriately for Coney Island.
What did he wear, a suit?
A suit, a preacher suit with a tie, and people recognized him, and there was a lot of interference with his having to give autographs. But the thing that I remember most was that the world's most ferocious roller coaster was at Coney Island, and he and Yolanda rode it 6 times.
Oh, wow.
And that impressed me, that he was a brave man. I was afraid to ride it. I never have ridden it in my life, but they rode it 6 times.
Oh, you reminded me of a scripture I was thinking about with that march, when people were singing, "We are not afraid." After the verse, "We shall overcome, we are not afraid." So I thought of 2 Timothy 1:7, wherein God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind.
Absolutely.
So he actually practiced what he preached.
Oh, yes.
Because he got on that roller coaster 6 times.
Even on the personal level, he practiced what he preached. That same year, 1963, my father responded to a call to become pastor of Second Baptist Church of Los Angeles. So the family moved all the way across country from New York to Los Angeles. And once he was in Los Angeles, Dr. King asked him to establish the West Coast branch of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference.
Okay.
And so an office was established here in Los Angeles, and he became head of that office. Now, other things in my father's life that perhaps were important were his contributions here in Los Angeles. Not only
tell us about Thomas
Kilgore, Dr. Thomas Kilgore
Jr.
Jr. Well, I think he would like to be remembered for his contributions not only to religion, but to education and to society. Those 3 areas. And so, briefly...
Religion, education, and society.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll start with religion. He pastored for more than 50 years, 5 churches, beginning down in North Carolina, where his family migrated from South Carolina when he was a little boy. And he pastored 3 churches in North Carolina before coming to New York. New York, 1947 until 1963. And then he finished pastoring. That was his 4th pastorate. And then California's Second Baptist Church from 1963 until his retirement as a pastor in 1985. He also, in 1969, delivered a baccalaureate address at the University of Southern California. And the president of USC, and he indicted USC for being in the middle of, people of color, poor people, its location in Los Angeles.
In the hood, we call it.
In the hood,
yes.
But having no impact on the neighborhood around them.
Okay.
And so the president invited him to come to lunch, and he said, "You disturbed us in your speech, in your baccalaureate speech, and what do you think we should do?" And so my father began to talk to him, and he ended up asking my father if he would come to USC and establish an office linking the university to the community. in the religion center there. And so my father did that and part-time. And to make a long story short, I think two of his main accomplishments were that today there are, through his efforts, over 300 community-based programs coming out of that center between USC and the community. And also, he noticed that the African-American students there were on a lonely island, you know, in a sea of the majority culture. And so he established the USC Black Alumni Association. And they are now in their 30-something year, going very strong, and they support each other and African-American students who come to the school. They find a very warm, they have their own office there, they have over $1 million endowment and scholarships now, and I guess that was one of the main things about my dad. He was a great fundraiser.
Oh, good for him, and I thank him posthumously. For my daughter is a graduate of the University of Southern Cal.
All right, so she probably was a beneficiary of, they called it Ebonics first, and then they changed the name to the Black Alumni Association. And so at USC, there is a building named in his honor. The Chapel of the Cross is the Thomas Kilgore Chapel of the Cross, and that's named in his honor. His other love was his alma mater, Morehouse College. He felt that as a country boy who grew up the son of a sharecropper in South Carolina, Woodruff, South Carolina, where he was born, that Morehouse...
Yay. I'm a South Carolinian.
Yes, and this is Spartanburg County. Spartanburg County. So he felt that Morehouse College, really, he was one of 12 children. And his parents, of course, could not afford to send him to college. He worked as a waiter in the teacher's dining room and did whatever else he could do. And that's, by the way, where he met the King family.
Okay.
Because he went to Ebenezer Church, where Daddy King, Dr. King's father, was the pastor at the time.
Yes.
And my father was a young preacher. He had begun preaching at age 17. And the Kings took him in. And they had him over for Sunday dinner, which was a real treat because the Morehouse dining room was closed on Sundays. And there, sometimes they went back to evening service, and they would ask him to keep the 2-year-old Martin King to babysit. So that's where that association began. And it was a close family association for life. But at any rate, years after my dad graduated, he became a member of the Board of Trustees at Morehouse and then chairman of the Board of Trustees and raised millions of dollars for the college. And they, too, remembered him in 1992 by naming their student center the Thomas Kilgore Student Center. Wow. And it's a beautiful structure with some dormitory room. It has rooms for visiting guests, and the president's suite is there, and a lot of activities go on there. And he has a large portrait hanging in there, the Thomas Kilgore Student Center at Morehouse College. So USC and Morehouse were two loves of his, absolute loves. And then on the political side, he worked closely with Mayor Bradley. Mayor Bradley named him to the redevelopment, Los Angeles CRA, the Community Redevelopment Agency. And he worked tirelessly on the renovation of the Baldwin Crenshaw Mall. And that was his big project with the other CRA commissioners during that time, to revitalize the African-American community by revitalizing the Crenshaw Mall, which had almost become defunct, you know, and people were not using it anymore. And so what you see there now today is the work of that CRA group that was appointed by Mayor Bradley. And he worked with them and did many other things here in Los Angeles.
Wow, what a rich legacy he leaves. And so how does it feel being the daughter of a prominent Dr. Thomas Kilgore?
Well, my sister and I, you know, were crazy about my dad. He was a great father.
Oh, that's a good thing.
A great daddy. We have many memories from childhood of taking family vacations and trips and doing a lot of nice things together. Our mother was professional. She was a school teacher, and Every other Friday was her night to herself. She went into her bedroom and closed the door, and that was my dad's night with us. And he would whip up something we call goulash, everything left over from the week in the refrigerator, and fix it for dinner. And we would play games and look at horror movies on TV on Friday nights, and he was just a lot of fun. And he was a family guy. He loved his family, his 11 brothers and sisters. We started a family reunion back in the 50s. It continues to this day every other year. And all of us first cousins and down to the second and third cousins, we're all close to each other from those 12 brothers and sisters.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you enlightening us on who Dr. Thomas Kilgore really was as a man, as a politician, as a pastor and religious leader, civil rights worker, and just an all-around guy.
Educator.
An educator. So we thank you for that. So even though he doesn't appear in this book in Black America, you have now gotten a taste of this person. She has one more picture. You want to tell us about it?
Well, there he is with former Congressman and Atlanta Mayor and UN Ambassador Andrew Young. That was at Second Baptist Church. And I just put it there because that smile that's on my dad's face was his trademark. He was always smiling, very warm, gracious, humble, and welcoming to people. He never forgot where he came from, Gloria. He never forgot that he was the son of a sharecropper from Woodruff, South Carolina, and he was grateful to God for any accomplishment in his life.
And I've got a feeling that smile is the same smile that I see on your face. Look at that.
I don't know about that.
Yes. But it's a privilege to be able to hear firsthand stories about your encounters with Dr. King and all of the contributions of your father. I thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Yes. And in closing, before we end with our last song by Mahalia Jackson, I want to be able to encourage you to, if you miss this broadcast live or you want to watch it again, go to RMC on rmcgospel.com. rmcgospel.com and watch the video replay of today's show. We're focusing on Black History Month, and we have one more week on which we will have a program. But today, I just want to close with a song by Mahalia Jackson. And before we do that, though, I encourage you to watch Good News for You, to watch and listen to Good News for You. And you can contact me, Gloria Mitchell, at you can contact me at P.O. Box 5181. That is Gardena, California, 90249. Or you can just call us at 310-973-5802. May the good news bless your heart. Remember, Jesus loves you, and I'm praying for you. And have a blessed day.
We are not afraid no more. We are not afraid no more. We are not afraid. Everything gonna be all right one day. Everything gonna be all right one day. Everything